My balcony has been looking pretty bad lately, so in this video I'm going to build some stuff and hopefully change that. Hi, I'm Yanis, I am a physicist and I do woodworking as a hobby. I have been meaning to fix up my balcony for the past 2 years, but I kept procrastinating. I decided that with summer just around the corner, now would be the perfect time to do it. The first thing I want for my balcony is to replace this thing. That was my old grill station and I just don't like it anymore. Wood selection here is very important and I decided to use cedar. This was my first time working with this species and I was very excited because the boards were looking beautiful. If you are wondering who are all these people in my workshop, well, this isn't my workshop. I do most of my woodworking at Woodwork Academy in Berlin, which is a co-working space owned by Luis, who is a master carpenter and a great teacher. Having someone with Luis's experience is great because it means I can run my ideas by him first. For the tabletop of my grill station, I was thinking of resawing some of these boards in half, but Luis advised me against it since the material would be then too thin. So currently I have no plan on how to make my tabletop. Okay. Even though I don't have a plan for it yet, I can still prepare the lumber to make the frame which holds it. The wood needs to be planed, but first I cut it into smaller, more manageable pieces. I want to end up with pieces which are 4 by 4 cm, so for the time being I cut everything a bit oversized, since planing will take some material off. Since I have to do a lot of repeating cuts, I set up a homemade stop block to ensure all my pieces have the same length. Once I have all of the pieces for the frame, I use the domino to put it together. I read a lot of strong comments when someone uses the domino, but I think it's great for such applications. It saves a ton of time and aligns everything perfectly. It is now the second day of the build. It's Saturday and there were currently no other members in the workshop. This is great because I can focus more without any Never mind. That was my partner Natalie, by the way. She is behind the camera making sure we have some nice shots for this video. So if you like the footage, make sure to leave some nice comments for Natalie's hard work. We will appreciate it. You just saw me make the top part of the frame, which is almost identical to what I did before. A few dominoes, some glue and clamps. Then I cut the pieces which will connect the two frames and forelegs. I often get asked if woodworkers have an ego like famous artists or athletes. Personally, I don't know if that's true, but to be honest, I'm not even the best woodworker in this video. This is Lira, our puppy, and she's a natural talent at carving wood. Unfortunately, she eats all of her pieces, so there is nothing to sew for it. Back to the build, I use the domino again for the pieces which connect the top and the bottom of the frame. It's easy to do the dominoes for the connecting pieces, but for the frames themselves I get a little bit creative. I could think of a number of ways to do this, but this was the fastest one in my opinion on this current setup. A quick dry fit to see if everything looks okay, and no problems so far. A very helpful tip for woodworking is to always sand your pieces before gluing them. So here I'm sanding everything before gluing the whole structure together. This is much easier than having a massive frame which I need to move around to sand properly. I use the orbital sander as much as I can, and then I continue with a sanding block by hand until I get a smooth surface. It's now time to address the elephant in the room. I had no idea what I was going to do for my tabletop. After brainstorming, I decided to go for a butcher's block look. The idea is to cut small end-grain square pieces like these and then glue them on a plywood seat. The best way I came up with to cut them was to set up a stop block after the blade of the drop saw. This is not recommendable since this is not completely safe. The piece which is cut can get trapped between the blade and the stop block and fly in random directions. I decided to still do it very carefully as the pieces were quite small and it turned out that cedar is quite soft. After 260 cuts and a couple of pieces flying into orbit, I was done and quite happy with the result. The next day I got to work on cutting the plywood seat. It was quite easy to cut the width of the board to size, but cutting it to length was a bit challenging. The width of the board was too wide for the drop saw, so I had to do it on the table saw while using a support rail. To attach the end grain pieces on the plywood seat, I decided to use a combination of wood glue and CA glue and activator. I first apply some wood glue and then use a drop of CA glue in the middle of the piece and press it on the plywood seat. I have seen this method used a number of times but never tried it before, and I was very happy with how well it worked. I left my tabletop a bit oversized, so I trimmed everything on the table saw. This also ensures that I get a clean edge, because there was no way I would get a straight line by gluing all of those pieces by hand. I really like how the grill station was looking so far, but I wanted to add a couple of high shelves. So my idea was to cut 2 long support pieces and cut grooves to attach them on the frame, then add 2 short support pieces for the shelf. You know what, this sounds way more complicated than it is. You can just watch here how I did it. Having access to a big workshop with professional tools is not something everyone can have or afford. I certainly am one of those people. I dream of having a workshop like this in the future, but for now I really enjoy my time in Woodwork Academy. If you're in Berlin and you're interested in woodworking, I highly recommend checking out the workshops they offer. This is not a sponsorship, by the way. I pay just like everyone else to use the workshop. It's just my genuine opinion. Okay, hopefully by now what I was saying earlier starts to make a little bit of sense. The long support pieces are attached to the frame, and the short ones which are perpendicular to them will hold the shelves. The bottom shelf is intended to be a bit wider, and as I'm gluing everything, Natalie realized I placed the shelves on the wrong places. So thankfully my glue hadn't dried yet, so I can switch them easily. In the meantime, I want to add some boards to the bottom of the frame so I can use that space for storage as well. The wood I selected here is pine, which is also okay for outdoor applications. After I cut each board to the size I wanted, I lay them on top of my frame to see how they fit. I intentionally left some spacing between the boards since this is an outdoor build, so in case of rain I want the water to be able to drain properly. Another great woodworking tip is always pre-drill your holes. I've had many times where I skipped this step and I ended up with my board splitting. So save yourself some money and time and just pre-drill your holes. To finalize the spacing between the boards, I used these plastic spacers which come in different sizes, and I was able to get near perfect results. Then I pre-drilled the frame through the hole of each board and screwed every board into place. Now it's finally time to attach the shelves. I also left a bit of a gap between the boards, but this is not functional, it's just more to keep the look similar to the boards attached to the bottom of the frame. Then I clamp everything down and drill through both the supporting rails and about half the thickness of the shelves. And with that, the build is complete. To finish the grill station, I will be using Durogrit by Rubio Monocoat. Durogrit is their new exterior grade finish. It's a water-soluble oil stain and sealer. It also adds UV and mechanical protection, so I think it's perfect for my application. The colors I went for are called Salt Lake Green and Grassland Base. By the way, remember when I said that I dream of having my own workshop? Well, the footage you're watching now is from our new atelier/workshop. Natalie and I just moved in here a few days earlier. It's not big or fancy, but it's ours. The following afternoon, we also decided to sand and apply Durogrit to my balcony furniture since they really needed some restoration. One of the next days we got some of the famous Berlin summer rain and got to see Durogrit in action, and I was very happy to see how well it was holding up. As a final touch, I added some wooden flooring I ordered online. I really would have liked to make that on my own, but I simply didn't have the time to do it. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. If you like the video and you feel like I've earned it, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. If you also drop a like in the comment, you're the best. Thank you. Now, without further ado, the final look of my renovated balcony.